Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:33. Any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
I need a motion to accept the board meeting agenda as presented. Can I get a second? All those in favor? Thank you. Recognitions this evening, Mr. Downing?
I do. This was a press release from the United States Senate Youth Program. It's provided to schools around the country. Maine has 4 that are elected to it. 2 go down, and then we have 2 alternates. And one of those alternates is our own student rep, Max Provincia, who was accepted to the United States Senate Youth Program as an alternate for the state of Maine. So I'd like to congratulate Max on that. Congratulations, Max. Good time to be in DC.
I'd just like to mention and acknowledge the passing of one of our former staff members back when I was in high school, of John McCatton. He was a math teacher here for years. We pass on our condolences to his family and pray for them at this time of loss. Consideration of the board meeting minutes, January 11th, 2022. Can I get a motion? Yep. To accept the board meeting minutes.
Oh.
No.
I'll make a motion to approve the January 11th board meeting minutes.
Can I get a second? Any corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. Consent agenda, we have nothing. Any presentations this evening?
No.
Would anybody from the public like to participate or address the board? And I'll rush at once. Report from the superintendent.
I do. I have a few items I'd like to bring to everybody's attention. Fortunately for some, unfortunately for the district, I have 3 letters of retirement, and I will read those to you. And it's close to 100 years of experience that I'm reading to you right now. I just have to push that down to my glasses. Dear Chris Downing, please accept this letter as a formal notice of my retirement effective at the completion of my current 21-22 contract. After almost 40 years of teaching, 21 years as a special education teacher at RSU 20, I have, with mixed emotions, decided to end my teaching career, but I'm excited to move into the next stage of life and spend more precious time with my family and friends. Teaching is a passion, and my time has been joyful, memorable, and rewarding experience, and I will dearly miss the students and staff I have met along the way. They are truly the very best, and I will forever have a place in my heart for each and every one of them. I am so grateful for this amazing job, and it has been a privilege to be part of this community and to teach at this school. With gratitude, Anne Marie Hoffman, middle school special education teacher. Dear Mr. Downing, it is with both joy and sadness that I share my plans to retire at the close of this school year on August 31st, 2022. It has been my profound honor and privilege to serve the children and families of this district for the past 38 years. Little did I know when my parents enrolled me in school here in 1971 that I would still be walking the same hallways and sitting in some of the same classrooms all these years later. While I'm looking forward to exploring what the next chapter of my life has in store, I am struggling to imagine how I would spend each day anywhere else but here. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to you and to the RSU 20 School Board for allowing me the privilege of serving this district and school community. I would also like to thank Mr. Toothaker and Mrs. Anderson and all of my RSU 20 co-workers for their unwavering kindness, support, and encouragement each and every day. Finally, I especially like to thank the families of RSU 20 school communities for their trust and support and for allowing me the privilege of spending a little time each day with their children. I am certain that I have learned as much from each of my students as they have hopefully learned from me. For that, I will be forever grateful, and they will always hold a very special place in my heart. Sincerely, Lorraine Nolet. Dear Chris and the RSU 20 School Board, as of July 1, 2022, I will be retiring from RSU 20 and my high school English teaching position at Searsport District High School. I have loved both teaching and engaging with our students and working with incredibly dedicated and talented staff over the past 14 years. The students in our district hold a very special place in my heart. They come to school, and for many, it is against all odds. They smile and they work hard. It has been an honor to teach and mentor them. It always amazes me how much they grow throughout their 4 years at Searsport District High School. As for the teachers, support staff, and administration, they have my utmost respect. Overall, they are the most supportive and professional staff with which I have worked. We share common goals. We want the best for these young minds. We want to provide a safe place for them to explore all their possibilities. The staff cares deeply and contributes greatly to this community. Sincerely, Nancy Raymond, ELA teacher, Searsport District Middle and High School. And with those three folks, I'm going to speak on behalf of RSU 20. Not enough thanks. Can thank them for the dedication. Like I said, close to 100 years here at RSU 20. And for all of you, I wish you nothing but success and enjoy retirement. You deserve it. And thank you to Anne Marie, Lorraine, and Nancy. Then I just realized I had one other here. So I've got a fourth. Add to the total. Oh, I'm sorry, I read this one last time. That was Kristen. So, I'll put those aside. Continuing on, at the last board meeting, a question was raised with regard to the main DOE and the 279, which is our report of state subsidy. We did receive those, and I can tell you that the preliminary figures, they're not final until acted upon by the legislature. But currently, we are looking at a state subsidy that has increased $434,000 from last year. So that is good news. Continuing the good news. I received this letter from Jobs for Maine graduates. I'll skip over some of it. I'll read this to you. I have some good news to share. The amount your school district contributes to JMG will not change for the 22-23 school year. And here's the key. Due to the funds raised, the JMG program at Searsport District Middle and Searsport District High School will continue to be offered with no contribution needed for the 22-23 school year. So our JMG program is thriving very well. The administration has begun the process to reestablish our after-school programming at Searsport Elementary School and the middle and high school. RSU 20 has received a grant to incorporate after-school program at SES and academic intervention at the high school, middle school. We are targeting a startup date right around when we come back from the February break, if not sooner, but that's probably the more logical because we've got things to put together. We'll be bringing more information back to you as we get ready to do that, and we will, meaning we as administration, will be consulting with our staff to make sure that we can take advantage of these two programs, both at the elementary school and at the middle and high school. The budget work is continuing. We are looking to increase a couple of programs. One is our gifted and talented programming at both the elementary as well as the middle school, high school, and our robotics program, which we need to get back up and running now that things are subsiding a bit. And then I have some news, but that'll come under old business with regards to the SOP.
Any questions for Mr. Downing? I have just one. Chris, you mentioned the after-school program probably 2 or 3 months ago, maybe even longer than that. We had a discussion about providing transportation from the Y and to the Y for before and after care to try to alleviate some of the requests for transfers because of the lack of daycare and to offer parents something as the other schools do within Waldo County.
That's sort of been on hold because of everything that's been going on. Now that we're going to incorporate this grant, I will be contacting them.
And I'm pretty sure I mentioned to you when I looked up their form, ironically, they already had Searsport on there as one of the schools to check off.
Yes, so that is part of what we're starting to do now that we're getting this up and going. So,
thank you. Anyone else?
I just have a quick question. The after-school program at the elementary school will be an academic intervention program, or will it be traditional after-school?
We are putting together a well-rounded after-school program. We're looking at creating opportunities for all kids. We haven't narrowed down all the logistics and the offerings yet. That's part of the process that we're in now.
Seeing no one else, moving on to committee reports. The Finance Committee did not meet tonight or this month. Policy Committee, I believe, met last evening.
Yes, we met last night and we had a discussion about our current lack of social media policy and potential need. And so there will be more work and discussion coming in regard to that. We reviewed all of Section A policies that have been updated, primarily just to have the title and the towns and a few other small bits and pieces here and there that just needed a general correction. And the last thing that we discussed was a new student dress code policy. And work continues on that as well. We'll be reviewing B policies next, just for those similar kinds of corrections that may be needed. Section B has to do with board function. So if other board members want to take a look at Section B in the handbook, and if you see any issues with that, we can address that at our next policy meeting, which will be February 7th at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? regarding policy? Chris?
If I could just add one thing, the A policies that have been revised or changed will be coming at the next board meeting, so there can be a first reading, and then in March will be the second reading.
Thank you. Moving on, consideration COVID guidelines from the state, which changes daily. What's today's version?
Believe it or not, we haven't had any changes for the last week, but who's to say that something won't change? I do have a couple I would like to bring to your attention. Ironically, it was, I believe it was a day or maybe 2 days after we met as a board, we received a revised SOP. And so and we've sent letters home with regard to that, but I want to make sure you're all aware is that the Maine CDC and the Maine DOE has provided the school systems with the option to no longer require close contact tracing within the guidelines of the SOP. RSU 20, with its mitigations aligned with universal masking and pool testing, will follow the SOP. As you notice by the letters, we are not doing the close contact tracing. Dr. Shaw said that contact tracing, and these are his words, are like chasing a bullet train out of the train station on a bike while you're putting your helmet on. We are no longer doing the contact tracing. We also looked at the SOP and made a couple phone calls, and that the positive test results are both confirmed and or probable. That's the way we're now addressing our letters, and we will continue to send those home so that folks are aware. I know it's probably monotonous getting one every day, but that's to keep the public informed. And in addition, the home test, which I know was asked about earlier in the year, results will be accepted by RSU 20. That's your probables. And if they are confirmed by the school nurse, those test results still go into the CDC for account. But the home tests, which are acceptable now, RSU 20, those are our probables that Monica gets a call on, and then we follow up accordingly. Also, that the CDC, when they look now with regards to, it's not case numbers, and this isn't just related to schools, they are looking at the positivity rate within the county and hospitalization rate. And those are the recommended guidance that CDC is following. And then last week, they came out with discussion about masks. And if you look at the SOP, it still talks about cloth masks, but they are recommending, again, CDC, when I say they, are recommending N95s and K95s for surgical masks. And we have brought many of those up to our schools now, so they are available. And we just got a notice today that we actually are receiving another $1,700 to purchase even more masks, which we will be doing if we haven't already ordered them tonight. We've been busy.
Any questions or discussion for Mr. Downing concerning the POS, I call it?
Just one question about the home testing. If a student does do a home test and they are positive at home, is the expectation or the wish that that parent would notify the nurse, and then are we bringing the test? Are they taking a photo? Like how's that being handled?
We are accepting the results of the home test. I'm looking at my administrator.
So just a parent calling would say, hey, my child tested positive, and then that conversation would then go on to whether or not we wanted the child to have the PCR test.
It's not the PCR test. What would happen was if they wanted to confirm that, so that it would fall into the 90-day, I can't think of the name of the
I know what you mean.
90-day sort of brackets. They would need to come to the school, have Nurse Monica test them, and then she would report that to the CDC. The CDC is not logging in just a home test. It would have to be confirmed by the school nurse. But yes, we want the parents to call. Then we issue the letter.
Any other questions?
I just have a question about the mask recommendation. Is this something you foresee us changing over to, these N95s and surgical masks? Like, students every day are going to be asked to wear these masks?
Are you asking
Yes.
for me to make an opinion
Nope.
on that?
I just want to know what the future expectation is. You said that the state was making a recommendation for us to use those. What do you see? How do you see that being implemented?
I'm going to answer that with, again, I watched the news conference or whatever the briefing that Dr. Shaw gives every week. And he said that surgical masks, as long as you cannot see the light coming through the mask, good to use. So that is my answer. I've always said I follow the scientists and the doctors. Surgical masks, I support. N95 and KN95, from what, again, scientists and doctors say, those are the best, but these work. So
Okay, so you're just stating that it's not something that's going to be put into practice for all students? I'm just curious.
masking should continue, but the surgical masks and up N95s, 95s are the best. The cloth masks are in the SOP,
Okay,
and that has not changed. It's in the letter. It's right there. I made sure I read that before I said anything.
yep, I just wanted to clarify.
So I would just like to make the point that when we go purchasing masks, I come from an industry where N95 masks for sheetrock dust, construction dust. I find it very hard to believe that a student could sit in a classroom with an N95 for 7 hours a day. Those are very restrictive compared to these and the cloth mask. So I would caution making a large purchase of those because I think that will cause more harm than good when it comes to the mask.
We are looking at the surgical masks.
Anyone else? Moving on. Consideration approval of substitute pay schedule updated with the new increased minimum wage rates attached. This is where I'm going to blow up the meeting. So I have a few questions. Over the past couple of years, of course, it's a little different with COVID, but it's always been a problem in the past. What is our struggle with getting substitutes currently in all of these positions?
I'll turn to my building administrators and let them answer that question for you, Tony.
I can't tell you why we can't get the substitutes. I can only tell you that every day, and I can say this is pretty universal between both buildings, K-12, that the day starts off with more holes to plug than we have fingers. And we are shifting staff. We are putting staff in multiple positions. Administration is covering classes. Social workers are covering classes. Ed techs are covering classes just to maintain the continuity of the day. Some of our subs that we had in the past relied upon are uncomfortable coming into the building because of the current state. But there's no, we have 3 applicants at this point. We're interviewing over the next week to try to get people in. There's just nobody coming through the door to help.
So that leads me to a question I probably should have asked in advance, Deanna. And this is coming probably from the most, I guess you want to say the tightest person on the budget committee, but I look at the minimum wage now of $12.75. I look at some of these positions, and then I drive by two McDonald's on my way to work every day who have a sign that one says $7.95 a week to start, and the other one says $8.04. And I wonder why an individual would come substitute for minimum wage. When if you've ever had children, let alone 15 or 20 in a class, would it behoove us to increase, and what would the cost be to increase this to what I call a more reasonable wage for what we're asking people to do? I know a few years ago we increased our substitute pay to be competitive within the area, to try to draw substitutes to RSU 20 versus the surrounding schools, and I don't know. I personally find that $12.75 an hour not sufficient anymore.
It's only written here because it is the minimum wage and we have been at the minimum wage.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear this? Bob, am I on speaker?
Yeah, you are.
okay. So the $12.75 is the minimum wage. We've been at minimum wage plus the premium for 10, 20, 30 plus days serving the district. That was new last year. So we do go up to 13, 14, 15, 75 an hour.
So
We also, that substitute teacher certified, $20 an hour, that's $140 a day. That's a new category that we're requesting. Currently, local districts, another district in the area is paying $135 a day for substitute teachers. And speaking of Mr. Downing, if we were able to get someone who is a certified teacher, retired or just moved to the area, and paid them $20 an hour, we'd be more likely to get a few more, we think.
So, and the question of the substitute teacher and the certified. So certified, you're talking about a certified teacher that could come, we could hire and take on the class. What's the qualifications for a substitute teacher?
I think it's just a high school diploma. Or do they have to have some courses? I don't know, because these guys are the ones that do that.
I always thought years ago it was 2 years of post-secondary education. That's what I thought it was, and it may change now because of the. Okay. So looking at each one of these categories, Deanna, secretaries, administrative assistants, how many times do we reach the 21 or 31 section of that category?
Because we have so few subs, most of our subs hit this because they're the ones who are willing to come in, and they're pretty much busy every day.
Okay. Ed techs?
Same thing. But not, okay, so we don't have a lot of admin assistant and custodial subs.
We don't. Okay.
Those are more rare, but
Okay,
ed techs and teachers, pretty much the people who are here are the ones who are willing to be here, and they're busy every day.
Tony, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
In terms of,
If you could speak into your mic, please.
in terms of the yellow on here, how much of an increase is this from last year? Because I'm not familiar with the pay rates from last year.
I think the rate was $12 an hour last January, the minimum rate.
I believe it was 12.15, I believe it was.
I just need clarification. Are you a member of the finance committee as well as chair? Are you looking to increase the recommendation?
Yeah, I'll just throw it out here. The minimum number I'm thinking in my head is $15 an hour for every one of these positions except for the certified teacher, which they should be at $20 an hour. I think if we're going to attract substitutes and start to maintain a regular group that says, hey, we'll substitute in RSU 20, they give them $15 an hour. That's what we did with the with the substitute teachers a few years ago, and it helped until COVID came along. But my second question was, how much of an effect does that have on the budget?
What I would ask is to have the opportunity to look at that and run some numbers.
My apologies, I should have asked in advance, but I thought about it yesterday afternoon, and like I said, you know, my place of business, I've been in Hancock for going on 5 years, and to hire anybody is nearly impossible. And I can only imagine what a frustration it is to call somebody and say, hey, you want to work a day? Or you want to work 2 days? Or you want to work 3 days? Well, for $12.75, I can go make a Subway for $15 an hour. So I'm just trying to find ways to attract substitutes, keep substitutes, and just kind of ease some of the burden of everybody having to do everything else. And I'm not sure if that will help. If we don't think it's going to help by raising it, and we're still going to get the same people and no more, then, you know.
I think we'll need to take a look at that and get back to you next month, but, you also want to, if you're going to recommend a flat rate, you'd have to still bump it up for a teacher versus an hour, like an ed tech or a custodian, or, because you'd have to offer something more to someone who's stepping into a teacher role than you would a support role, I would think.
Yeah, you're $12.75. My thought process was your $12.75s would be a 15, and then your substitute teachers, they're only $1 more on here, so they would go to $16.75. And you've already created a substitute certified teacher, which is at $20 an hour. I'm talking about getting rid of these 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 31, and just making it 15 from the get-go. You come work for us for 1 day, it's $15 an hour. You come work for us 40 days, it's $15 an hour.
Then I will ask is that our agenda for our next meeting, which is on February 8th, what do you want to add?
I'm away that day. I'm out of that's my
But
vacation.
we can bring a chart.
So can I just make a recommendation? I think we need to approve this because of the change in minimum wage to get it on the books, but I would like to revisit this as a board, and look at the possibilities of making it more attractive for substitutes within, you know, RSU 20.
If we could do that at the second meeting in February, that would be great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do we have a second meeting in February?
No.
Then first meeting in March when we have budget season? I'm looking at you, Mr. Downing. It's your call.
What we're being asked is we are being asked to approve this so we meet the minimum wage law.
Correct.
Then at the next meeting, we would have a second proposal and just present that. And we've been given sort of a $15 ceiling. We need to look at how that would affect it, and we can present that. That's what you're asking.
That is what I'm asking, yes. I'm assuming we know what all the surrounding districts are paying for substitutes. I would hope we are.
Tony,
Yes.
just a question, because I think I heard Miss Deanna say that they very rarely have admin and custodians, and I don't know if she said kitchen or not, but that it primarily falls into the ed tech substitute and certified teachers. So I'm wondering, do you guys have a breakdown of how many of these how many people for these categories you had to call in? Because I'm wondering if we're not ever getting, you know, we don't have a need for one of the, like, we're not accessing this on a regular basis, would it make more sense to increase the ones that we are accessing more regularly? And we can always revisit the ones that we're not.
We do have a breakdown because it's budget line that we have to follow.
So if they have, you know, the last year they needed 75 ed tech subs, but only 1 day of custodian, it wouldn't really, I just don't want them to do work that wouldn't necessarily have an impact on drawing people in if that's a category that we don't need to draw people in on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, I fully understand what you're saying.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that we do need people who are willing to be custodial subs so that we don't have to have our regular custodians go into overtime, because that's what we end up doing.
Okay, and I wasn't saying that we don't, I'm just
No,
saying, like,
no,
it'd be
no.
nice to know what the breakdown was in each one of these categories, so we can see where we're accessing it the most.
I think another point, and I'm looking at the administrators that have to do this for your feedback, and that is, do you feel that the question of the finances has been a detriment to getting subs? Are we
Because they don't give you a reason when they say no, right?
I can tell you that when Paula was covering for the sub-caller who was gone for a month, she had a woman on the hook. By the time she got home, by the time this woman had gotten home, another district had called her and signed her up for every day, and they pay more.
We will be bringing you a new rate, and we'll be looking at the districts around us, and we'll be doing that at the next board meeting, so we can maybe help out our administrators and our staff, and then more importantly, our kids.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the substitute pay schedule for the 2021-22 school year as presented at this meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? There'll be further discussion in the later meeting. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Date and time of the next board meeting, Mr. Downing?
It is February 8th. There is a finance committee meeting at 6, board meeting at 6:30, right here. Finance is down the central office.
Mr. Downing, did we need to address this?
Candidate profile sheet. Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Thank you. 7:10.